Victor is just an ordinary mechanic, a quiet man living on the edge of a small town with oily hands and sincere eyes. But sometimes it is the simple people who have the power to change everything. A sudden rainstorm, a deserted road, and a broken car brought him to a fateful moment. Without hesitation, Victor stopped in the cold rain to help a strange woman. A small act, but containing all his kindness. However, what Victor could not have expected was that simple kindness would start an extraordinary chain of events. A helicopter landed in front of his small house, carrying a mysterious invitation from the woman he had helped. Behind that thank you was a whole new world, a journey that had never happened in his life. Can you imagine that just one moment of stopping to help someone could completely change your own life? What mysteries await Victor ahead? And what happens when kindness not only spreads, but also becomes a force that brightens the darkest corners of life? Before we continue the story, where did you find this? Was it a random click, or was it sent to you by someone? Share it with us in the comments. And if you want to be part of more inspiring stories like this, click subscribe today. Tomorrow, a special story awaits you. A story that will not only touch your heart, but also inspire your faith. Victor, a simple mechanic, lives in a small house on the edge of town, where each day begins and ends with the clanking of tools and oil on his sleeves. His life is not glamorous, sometimes even harsh. But Victor never complains. He accepts everything with a rare calm. Every time he looks up from an engine he is repairing, his eyes always shine with sincerity, as if he understands that everyone has their battle to face. It was raining that day, heavy rains obliterating the horizon. After a long and exhausting day at work, Victor drove his old truck home through the slippery streets, wanting to quickly escape the cold rain and lost in thought. But as he passed a dark corner, he noticed the flashing lights of a car on the side of the road. Victor slowed down and stopped, letting the rain beat against his windshield. He didn't know who was in the car, but it didn't matter. He stepped out, his old coat soaked in an instant. In the dim light, he saw a woman, huddled beside the wrecked car, her eyes both worried and helpless. "Are you okay?" Victor asked, his voice warm, breaking the damp air. The woman, Layla, explained that her car wouldn't start. Without hesitation, Victor bent down to check. The car had just had a dead battery, a small problem, but enough to leave her stranded in the rain. Victor grabbed the cable from his truck and set to work. His movements were quick, but careful, as if he were not just fixing a car, but also alleviating a worry. Layla stood there, watching him through the rain, a strange feeling rising in her heart, both grateful and touched. As Layla's car engine roared to life, a small smile spread across Victor's lips. "You can drive safely," he said. Layla offered to pay him, but Victor just smiled and shook his head. "No need. If you have the chance, help someone like I helped you today. That's enough." His words, simple yet profound, were like a small seed planted in Layla's soul that would eventually sprout into something much bigger. As she drove away, Victor stood there, watching the car disappear into the rain, not thinking that he would ever see her again. But that moment, between the cold rain and the genuine act of kindness, set in motion a chain of events that would change his life forever. 2 days later, Victor's life went on as usual. He started his day in his small garage, the familiar sound of engines and the smell of oil filling the air He didn't think about that rainy afternoon when he stopped to help a stranger on the side of the road. For him, it was just one of the many moments of kindness he was always willing to give, expecting nothing in return. But fate seemed to have its plans. That morning, as he was crouching under his car to check for a minor problem, the phone rang. Victor reached up to wipe his greasy hands and picked up. On the other end of the line was his neighbor's voice, urgent and agitated. "Victor, I need to get home now. There's a helicopter parked in front of my house." Victor paused. "A helicopter?" he repeated, thinking he had misheard. But the neighbor's voice was firm, urging him to get home immediately. With no time to think, Victor hurried out of the workshop, his old truck roaring down the road leading home. His heart was pounding, curiosity mixed with a little bit of anxiety. What was that helicopter? And why was it in his small house? As Victor turned onto the familiar street, he immediately realized that his neighbor was right. In front of his simple house, a large, shiny helicopter was parked on the lawn, attracting the attention of everyone around. Next to the helicopter was a group of men in black suits, their faces calm but carrying an air of authority. Victor got out of the car, wariness evident in his eyes. He approached the group, and before he could say anything, one of the men stepped forward, held out his hand, and introduced himself. "Mr. Victor, we are here on behalf of a man you helped 2 days ago, in the rain." Victor stood still, confused. He could only vaguely recall the face of the woman he had stopped to help. "You mean Layla?" he asked, his eyes sparkling with wonder. The man nodded. "She sent us to bring you to her. She has a special thank you for you," he said, a small smile on his face that revealed that this was just the beginning of something bigger. Victor took the letter the man handed him, his hand shaking slightly as he opened it. Inside, Layla's soft handwriting appeared. "Victor, your act of kindness that day has changed more than you think. Please come with these people. I have something important to tell you." The words were short, but enough to ignite Victor's curiosity. He looked at the helicopter, at the strangers, and finally he nodded, accepting the mysterious invitation. As the helicopter took off, Victor sat by the window, his eyes looking down at the small town he had always called home. His mind was filled with unanswered questions. He had no idea what lay ahead. But deep down, he felt that his life was about to turn a new page, a page he could never have imagined, all because of a simple act of kindness in the rain. The helicopter gently landed in front of a magnificent mansion surrounded by lush gardens. Through the window, Victor was amazed by the sight before him, a space as magnificent as if it had come out of a dream, opposite to the simplicity he had become accustomed to. He felt like a small piece in a huge picture, but he could not take his eyes off the beauty of the place. The guide led Victor through marble hallways, where every detail exuded sophistication and luxury. Stopping in front of a large door, he smiled and opened it, motioning for Victor to enter. In the room, with glass windows overlooking the magnificent garden, Layla stood there, the pale yellow sunlight illuminating her elegant figure. When she turned around, her smile was warm, but her eyes held a special seriousness. "Victor," Layla said, her voice soft but captivating. "Thank you for coming." Victor nodded, still unable to hide his confusion. "I don't understand," he said, his voice soft. "What is all this about?" Layla moved closer, her eyes fixed on him, sincere and profound. "What you did that day, Victor, didn't just fix my car. You fixed my belief in the goodness of people. When everyone else was passing by, you stopped. You didn't ask for anything, didn't expect anything in return. And that changed me. Victor listened silently, both touched and confused. But I only did what I thought everyone should do, he whispered, feeling small in the face of her words. Layla smiled. That's why you're the one I wanted to meet. She walked over to a small table where a thick envelope and a set of keys were neatly placed. Layla picked them up, looked at Victor, and said, "In this envelope is enough money to live comfortably for the rest of your life. And these keys are for a new car that I think you'll like." Victor's eyes widened, almost in disbelief. He couldn't take his eyes off the envelope in her hand. But before he could say anything, Layla continued, "But that's just a small part. What I want to give you is much more than that." She paused, as if to let the words sink in. "Victor, I'm looking for someone like you. Someone who is not only skilled, but also has a kind heart. I want you to work with me. Not just a job, but a journey. To help more people, to spread kindness like you did for me. This is your chance to start a new life, a new chapter." Victor stood there, his heart pounding. Her words lit a fire inside him, both hopeful and fearful. He faltered, his eyes filled with emotion. "I don't know if I deserve all this. I'm just a mechanic." Layla shook her head slightly, her eyes seeming to touch his soul. "Victor, you're more than just a mechanic. You're the one who reminded me that kindness still exists in the world. And now I want to give it back, not just to you, but to the world you've inspired." The room fell silent, save for the gentle sound of the wind outside. Victor felt like everything in his life, the hard days, the times he chose to help people without expecting anything in return, had led to this moment. Layla placed the envelope and keys in his hands, her voice soft but firm. "The choice is yours. No one is forcing you. Whatever you choose, I will always be grateful for that moment when you stopped in the rain that day." Victor clenched the envelope in his hand, his eyes wavering between disbelief and hope. He didn't answer right away, but he knew in his heart that this moment would forever change his life, no matter which path he chose. Victor returned home with the envelope and the keys in his hand, his heart in turmoil. That night, he sat quietly in the small living room, the yellow light from the desk lamp reflecting off the old wooden table. The envelope sat before him, silent but heavy, like a decision that required both his heart and soul. He didn't open it right away. Instead, Victor closed his eyes and took a deep breath. In his mind, each image appeared clearly. Long days working in the garage, nights returning with tired hands, but a light heart knowing he had tried his best. He remembered the moment in the rain when he decided to stop the car without hesitation, simply because his heart told him it was the right thing to do. But now, the opportunity Layla offered him was more than just a reward. It was a door that opened to a whole new world, a world that Victor never thought he would belong to. Wealth and comfort confused him, but Layla's invitation to a greater journey awakened something deep within him, the desire to create value, not just for himself, but for many others. The next morning, Victor woke up with a clear feeling in his heart. He picked up his old phone and dialed the number on the business card Layla had left. When the familiar voice came on the other end, Victor smiled as if his whole heart was saying, "I'm ready." A few days later, the helicopter returned, but this time Victor boarded with a different mindset. No longer confused or afraid, but confident and enthusiastic. As the helicopter lifted off, he looked out the window at the small town below, as if waving goodbye. Victor entered Layla's mansion, not just as a guest, but as a companion on a new journey. He began his work with Layla, where he used not only his skilled hands, but also his compassionate heart. Every day, Victor witnessed the small changes that he and Layla made to others, and he realized that acts of kindness never stop. They spread, connect, and change the world in ways he never imagined. One evening, standing on the balcony of the mansion, looking out at the rolling hills in the sunset, Victor suddenly thought of the rain that day. From that small act, his whole life had changed. But more than that, he realized that kindness, even the smallest, has the power to create extraordinary things. And that is the journey he will continue to walk, not only for himself, but for those who are waiting for a ray of light in the rain. Victor's story reminds us of the magical power of kindness, a seemingly small thing that can change the lives of not only others, but also our own. A simple act in the rain, without expecting anything in return, opened up an extraordinary journey for Victor. And that is also a lesson for all of us. Sometimes, the best thing you give becomes the seed for more wonderful things that life brings. Thank you for listening to this story, because when you take the time to feel, you have become a part of the journey of spreading positive values. If this story touches your heart, please click like so we can spread the message of kindness. Share this story so that your loved ones can also be inspired. And don't forget to leave a comment. Share a small story about kindness that you have given or received. Let your words be a ray of light in someone else's life, just as Victor was a small light in the rain. Together, we can spread the belief that this world needs and appreciates kindness.